following program is classified G. It's suitable for all ages.
Tonight, lawyers are considered to be gatekeepers of the legislature. Since the time they take the oath, they have to uphold it to the letter, despite their personal renditions. A lawyer cannot forego their responsibility of protecting the law. In the past few months, the credibility of Sri Lankan lawyers came under fire after many were accused of advocating openly to violate the constitution. With the activities of the recent past, the image of the whole law fraternity has been tainted. It is vital all steps are taken to rectify it. Because if the people has no trust in the law, then we are only left with anarchy and a society that will be governed by the jungle law. Welcome to Law, Land and Liberty, where we are keeping with the promise of bringing in a contemporary legal topic and breaking it down for our viewers. Now, the conversation of the legal aspect is something that we've been continuing within this program for quite some time. But the proponents in it, the stakeholders, people like the lawyers, what exactly is their role and what is the mandate that has been given to these lawyers is something that we need to really discuss. And to give us an enlightenment on this factor, we have one of the most experienced minds in the legal field, someone who has been within our program and has graced our program once again, former Chief Justice Sarath and Silva. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us once again. As everyone knows, the Chief Justice is widely experienced in almost all fields of the law in this adversarial system, be it prosecutorial, even as a judge, with 41 years of service in the judicial system. It was a former Attorney General and was the 41st Chief Justice of our country. It's truly an honor to have a conversation with you once again, sir. I want to directly dive into the topic because I want to give as much time as possible to you to elaborate and give your perception, because you have, as you have made it clear, 3 constitutions you have witnessed. You have witnessed the country during a time of conflict, during peacetime. The mammoth experience you have is something that we really need to sort of like crystallize and give to the generations that are coming, which is why we really wanted to speak to you. Now, within this adversarial system, the lawyer plays a key role as opposed to the inquisitorial system within some countries. But let's just give a general introduction, sir, to the topic. How do you see this adversarial system being formulated within Sri Lanka? What are the elements that we really have focused on in the past, elements that we have really shown good exemplary qualities in, and where do we really need to improve? Let's start there.
Thank you, Daniel, for the invitation extended to me once again. I'm really delighted to be in your company.
Thank you, sir.
I admire your service very much. Daniel, this is a very first time I have heard a Sri Lankan talk about the adversarial system in particular, because many Sri Lankans don't know there is a different system.
Yes.
There's a different system which operates in Europe. And I had an exposure to the system because my master's degree is from Brussels University. So we had to study that aspect also. In a inquisitorial system, or what we call a prosecutorial system, that's what operates in Europe.
Right.
I think a lawyer from Sri Lanka will be amazed as to how those courts operate, particularly the speed at which those courts operate. And the level of results in the inquisitorial system, the level of results is far higher. Far higher. I mean, even I was amazed, because there the judge plays a very active role. The investigators play a very active role.
Right.
And the judge really goes into the subject straight away.
Yeah.
So there is no question of beating around the bush. Whereas in the British system that we have inherited, good time to talk about inheritance, the Queen has died.
Exactly.
So, it is the opposite. But in Britain, it is more like the inquisitorial system. Okay. There also the judge plays a very active role. Yeah. But here somehow it has become somewhat different. Yeah. And there is especially at the original level in the magistrates court and so on, the police play fairly significant role.
Right.
Although not visibly, they play a fairly visible role. And the lawyer plays really a secondary role, very secondary role. And I think it's a time that we must change this in some particular way, because we have to get result oriented. At the moment we are not result oriented. That's the criticism about the legal system, Dhanendu.
Right.
People say we keep on going to court over and over and over again. When you say there is a case, it is a curse.
They're fed up.
They are fed up. They are fed up.
Yeah.
Now I will tell you. Now I have been doing certain other aspects also.
Yeah.
I was charged for contempt of court.
Yes.
Quite recently. It is part of the process.
Yeah.
I made some speech and they said contempt of court. So I had to go 4 times to court for that.
Yeah.
And it just got fizzled off. They didn't even write a judgment, they just threw it away. So 4 times I had to go for that.
Yeah.
So that is where our system is a bit of a failure.
Right.
And I think our legal profession must move in the direction of all reforms should be, the legal profession has to play a key role in that. So far the lawyers have thought we protect proceedings, we get more fees.
Right, exactly.
Why not, don't beat upon the bush. That is the attitude. Don't finish your cases, go on as long as possible, we can make money.
Yeah.
But that's wrong,
Right.
because there's less litigation.
Okay.
Very few people are prepared to come to court. They forsake their rights. That is the other disadvantage. They forsake their rights. They say, no, we will suffer this injustice. Then what happens? The thug or the person who takes the law into his own hands. Now this is then it is the more dangerous aspect. Then he gets away with it.
Yeah.
He gets away with it. The innocent man is a victim. He's a victim of this process. So we have to ensure that our litigation process is result oriented, as it is in Europe.
Right. I think that's a perfect sort of introduction to where we are going to head with this entire discussion, sir. Speaking of the lawyers in particular, now not being critical, but rather there is a requirement to be critical at this junction also, because we saw within the past few months actually, and we have held as in personally I also have held a very critical approach of how certain lawyers reacted to certain situations. Let's talk a bit about etiquettes, sir, about this. Like we'll slowly step into the subject as well. When you came into office and when you were part of when you're the Chief Justice, actually, it was a very different situation and very challenging. And we get to read about it, and even the texts give a certain level of the kind of struggles that you'll have to go through. But still, the justice system took that into their own hands and really took the country's the nationalistic sort of agenda forward. It was pro Sri Lanka at all of those instances. And even the lawyer has the fundamental oath of being for the constitution, and that is where it all starts. What are the general etiquette, like if you have to look at the law fraternity now, or even the younger lawyers that are joining in, you're observing their behavior, what are the key etiquette that you believe that they need to develop or they need to have in order for the thugs not to take the law into their own hands, for anarchy not to exist?
Yeah, you're making a play on that. No, really, at that time when we were functioning, they were very critical stages.
Yeah.
The rule of law had broken down. There was war.
Yeah.
Some section of the country was totally ruled
Yes.
by the terrorist groups.
Yeah. They had their own Chief Justice.
They had their own Chief Justice. I have mentioned this, and it was featured in
the papers, side by side.
Side by side. So that was a challenge. But we overcame that challenge by establishing the courts.
Yes.
I think the government of the day, the Rajapaksa government of the day, didn't realize the very valuable role we played. They had no part of that. Because the money came from a World Bank project that I had secured. And we built the courthouses in Jaffna, the Trincomalee and places, and won the confidence of the people.
Yeah.
So at the time the war was over, if you take the last stages of the war, people just ran towards the government side.
Yeah.
Why? Because they were convinced that there was justice imparted on the government side. By that time we had established courts in all these places, and all operated by Tamil judges, who did a wonderful job. Still some of those judges are in those areas. They are in contact with me. So they won the confidence of the people. They administered quick justice. Because Prabhakaran also admitted quick justice, in his own way. But I was going to add, but our justice had a quality in it, in the sense that there was fairness, there was equilibrium. Not that we took a government side or any other side, but so that was a big achievement, and the government benefited from that. They did not realize that these people, otherwise they wouldn't have walked in.
True.
If they found that this is an inquisitive system where they will get shot down, they wouldn't have walked in. They had the confidence that the rule of law prevails on our side.
Exactly.
That is why they walked in. They had the confidence that rule of law prevails on our side. So that was a big achievement, which I think the government of the day didn't appreciate. And unfortunately, my retirement also coincided with the end of the war. So we couldn't follow up on this. We couldn't follow up on that, otherwise we would have had better relations. I am sure these resolutions in the UNHRC wouldn't have been there, because we would have handled it much differently. So the lawyers have a very significant role.
So that's why I wanted to combine, sir, because now you mentioned the justice system, especially under you managed to have the judiciary working towards that agenda, the Sri Lankan oriented agenda. What's the role of the lawyers there?
No, there we put the national interest in the forefront. That was necessary. That was essential. We put the national interest in the forefront, and the lawyers at that time cooperated to a very great extent. They cooperated because we want to expeditiously dispose of cases. We had really three pillars on which we worked. We improved infrastructure. Those days when I took over, no court had a toilet to begin with. It was dilapidated, broken down. We so improved infrastructure. Then we improved our systems. We introduced computers, various things. And finally, most important thing, we educated our judges. We had a judges training institute, and lawyers also came along with this. So these three things really coincided. So now what we have to do is we have to follow up on this. Judges training is going on still. I am very happy to say that it is going on still. We built the Judges Training Institute. Till then, it was the Chief Justice's bungalow that was used as a Judges Training Institute. Now I see President saying my house is smaller than the other house. 41 years I had never lived in an official bungalow. And these people talk about the houses in retirement. Never ever lived in any official bungalow. Chief Justice's residence was used as a Judges Training Institute. So it is continuing. We built a new training institute. Every week there are programs. Now lawyers also must do this. Now in the other parts of the advanced world, it is a continuous legal education system. Now that is where I think the Bar Association has failed. Continuous legal education system. Not everyone who wears a black coat, who has been enrolled by the Supreme Court, should be able to get up and address court. You see, there has to be a practitioner's certificate. Now this is where we fail. So that there will be you first apprentice under someone, then you sit for some continuing legal education program, examinations, and then you qualify yourself to stand up in court and say, I represent X, Y, or Z. So then, of course, there is quality. A lot of senior lawyers those days wanted me to introduce this, but I didn't want to venture into the legal profession. I had enough enemies outside. But that is what is necessary. Now you are from an outsider's perspective, to say basically that you are not satisfied with the performance of our lawyers. I read your pulse. You represent the vast majority of people in this country, probably 100%, other than the lawyers. That is because this anybody who takes oaths now can get up on the very next day and represent the person. Whereas representing the interests of a litigant in an adversarial system. Now, in the inquisitorial system in Europe, of course, the lawyer hardly gets the opportunity to get up because the judge does you are quite right. The judge does the thing, and then later on he'll tell the lawyer, now I have these things against you. Tell me what have you got to say about it. So the picture is cut and dry for the lawyer, and he also can follow the judge. But there are so many practitioner certificates that are necessary. There are so many practitioner certificates. So practitioner certificate is necessary. Not everybody who takes oaths can get up in the very next day in court and appear for a client. He can appear in court, but I will tell you then where we went wrong, with your permission.
Yes, no problem.
Now when I joined in 1968, the Attorney General's Department, I was a Crown Counsel under Queen Elizabeth, the second who passed away. So our letter of appointment had the crown really. So Crown Counsel. Then those are advocates. Now advocates have a process of training under a senior lawyer. But even then you go into court with your senior lawyer for some time, and then only you work in his chambers. That's how the concept of chambers. I think still in some of the cases of some of the lawyers, I can mention Mr. Silva's name. There is a chamber. I have seen it work because he appears for me. When I contempt a cause, it's Mr. Silva who defends me. So I don't know to defend myself. Because there was an old saying that if you go to defend yourself, you have a fool for your client.
You need another spare vice.
So now he has a nice round table. I hope he doesn't get angry with me for saying that. But there is an open discussion with the juniors who do this. So that's the British system of chambers. So he is following yet the old tradition. I think Mr. Harsha Cabral, so many people, Sanjeev Jayawardena has all this, a lot of senior lawyers have that. But that is few in number. Few in number. So they have, we had the advocate system. So they really, then in 1970, with this Felix Das Bandaranaike government, they want to have barefoot lawyers, because he was angry with the system. He was angry with the system. So they did away with the division and they fused the profession. Earlier there were proctors who were highly respected, who had their offices, and litigants, people virtually entrusted all their deeds also to these proctors, who were highly respected. So that's how these famous firms of Deserums, all these firms came up, FJ and Deserums, you name it, so many firms came up like that. So that system was broken off by this Mr. Felix Das Bandaranaike's. He wanted to have barefoot lawyers. He disrobed the judges. He didn't want judges to wear robes. They had to come in an open suit. Now, someone who's walking, the judge and the lawyer, they go dressed in the same way. Nowhere in the world does it happen like that. So that is where this thing broke down. So the proctors practice in their offices with their senior proctors. Advocates had their counsel. The system was working very well until this person put his finger into it.
Right.
So he was known as Foolish Das Bandaranaike. But now his statue is there,
Right.
opposite the petrol shed, fortunately, because there is no petrol in the shed. So that is where we went wrong.
Yeah.
Now we have to get back. We can't undo this.
Yeah.
We can't undo this, but we can have a thing like a practitioner's certificate,
Right.
where in a particular magistrate's court level, the practitioner must have at least 2 or 3 years of experience. Before he knows we can get up and quote, then the judge also will have confidence
True.
in what that man says.
Yes, yes. So, a very enlightening session. We'll take a very short break. You're watching Law, and Liberty. Stay with us as we discuss further with former Chief Justice Sarath and Silva. Welcome back to Law, Land and Liberty. We are in conversation with former Chief Justice Sarath and Silva. So a very enlightening session, as I said before, that we just passed. You did reference the Bar Association, and there are also one would say divided society was created on the performance, the behavior of the Bar Association. And I want to start by asking, sir, based on your experiences, on how you have seen multiple associations come together and extend their duty or their mandate, which people are not too clear about also. What exactly is the role of a Bar Association as you see it, and as how any sort of the law would see it, or any form of a convention would have established for the Bar Association? What is the role there?
Now the Bar Association, the origin of Bar Association is the fusion of this profession.
Right. Okay.
Earlier we had a Bar Council
Okay.
covering advocates. Then we had a Law Society covering proctors. Then the Bar Association, the amalgamation was Bar Association, and Mr. W. Javadana.
Right.
At that time, his brother was not the president.
Okay.
He was elected as the first president of the Bar Association. And he set up a very high standard of performance, because W. Javadana, quite irrespective of the brother's politics, was an excellent counsel. He was a Queen's Counsel, excellent counsel. He used to treat his juniors well, adversaries well. Of course, he got favorable verdicts because judges sought to his favor. So that's in the later government. Yeah. But he probably didn't have the time, he came fairly late, to establish the standards at the beginning. Otherwise, I'm sure he would have had this practitioners thing done, so that the transition can be effective.
Right.
So that is where we failed. He had less time. He became fairly, and he was not too well.
Okay.
After that, he got heart problems and he died fairly early in life, relatively early. So now Bar Association has to play a key role in this. You see, unless the Bar Association moves in this matter and suggests this to the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court won't take on this.
Right.
Because Supreme Court won't want to regulate the Bar Association. It's a serious problem. Nor would the Ministry of Justice want to regulate the Bar Association.
Right.
So the change must come from within.
Within the Bar Association.
Change must come from within the Bar Association. Now, Bar Association consists of various branch organizations. So really change must come from those branch organizations also. Now, I was told, when I was Chief Justice, I was told in courthouse X. So if you go in the morning, you see lawyers on the side of the road with tables. So that's an ugly sight. People, and why don't you drive that way? So one day when I used to visit all the courthouses, I went early, and lo and behold, I saw these people outside the courthouse on the main road. It's a main road, by because there were no office space.
Okay.
Then Kandy, the new court complex was started. I started the whole thing, new court complex. Offices were somewhere else. So they are in temporary offices on the other side of the rail track.
Okay.
Then I was told that 27 people, 27 or 29, I don't know, it's some between 25 and 30 people, litigants had died crossing the rail track.
Right.
You go to the lawyer's office, then of course you are perplexed, your fees are taken, man blindly steps onto the rail track and he's killed. So when I got to know this, I said we must accelerate the construction of the officers complex.
Yeah.
And I myself laid the foundation. One of the last acts that I did as Chief Justice was to open that new court complex, officers complex.
Right.
So they have all offices. There are 220 odd offices in Kandy. Now that is where the real crux of the matter is. Someone comes, lays a table, and then gets some clients. So now that has to be regulated.
Yeah.
The bar association must do it, and it must start from the peripheral.
Right.
In peripheral areas where really every lawyer who is practicing must have an office.
Right.
Must have an office, which is a decent office, where people can come to, not just a table and someone who's standing under a tree and collecting money.
Yeah.
That was how the traffic court was functioning earlier. So I moved the traffic court to Hulstorf because traffic court, I sent the secretary of the JSC to inspect the traffic court. He was a Muslim gentleman. He had worn a sarong and gone with a file. His file was to study about the court. As soon as he walked towards it, someone has grabbed his file, thinking that it's a brief. So he came back and told me, Lordship, you have to change this system. So that is where the change must take place. They must. So those are essential things, because the profession has got so overcrowded.
Yes. Yes.
And we are now brimming with numbers. There is input from the open universities, so many universities, so many, the numbers are increasing. And the number of courthouses are not increasing.
Right.
So we have to have in the branch, bar association must get the branches to organize this. What branches do not have officers space for lawyers?
Yeah.
Basically, we must start with this, no?
Yeah.
Now, basically, we must have space.
Yeah.
And thereafter, then you say, within your complex, now what is the system of licensing that you can do?
Yeah.
Maybe 3 years you have to practice before you represent the client.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing must be done. So the bar association must have refresher courses.
Right.
Bar association must organize this. They don't have to go to golf face green and start shouting. You play your role well. That is enough.
Yeah.
You play your role well, and golf face green will come to you. So they must have a system of practitioner's license, some certificate,
Yeah.
that this man has followed the programs of the bar association.
Yeah. Okay.
I have followed, and my post enrollment certificate is this.
Yeah.
Post enrollment certificate 2, post enrollment certificate 3. You must have it in your office.
Yeah.
Then the litigant knows, I am coming to a man who has experience and who has got trained.
Yeah.
So now these are things that we did in our judges training.
Right.
We ensured that training is, but the trained judges need support of lawyers.
Okay.
Now the judges in the magistrates court, they rely more on police officers.
Okay.
That is the danger. They don't rely so much on lawyers, they rely on police officers, because police officers are close to them. They do their marketing. So this is the crux of the matter. Yeah, they are as personal security officers. So that is the crux of the matter. You have to come to grips with this.
Yeah.
But if the lawyers are strong enough, they can keep all these things in check.
Right.
They can keep even the police in check.
Right.
So that is what I am saying. We must have this licenses and training, continuous. Continuous training, continuous assessment. Bar association, there is now a new president to be elected.
Yes.
He must now take his focus away from human rights. There are enough bodies all over the world for human rights.
And all over the country also.
All over the country for human rights. Bar association must look after itself. And ensure now during my term of office next year, I am going to establish training programs. And lawyers are encouraged to follow this training program. At the end of it, we give a certificate.
Right.
That certificate you can hang in your office, exhibit in your office, and get the approval of the Chief Justice for that course.
Right.
invite him as a chief guest or something. So automatically recognition comes.
Yeah.
So not that the Supreme Court is going to recognize it.
Yeah.
Supreme Court can't recognize. For Supreme Court, there is only one attorney at law.
Yeah.
But they can have. So this is where we are going wrong. Then I am happy that you have focused on this. Now there is a new president to be elected. That man must have this program of action.
Right.
And I am sure a lot of lawyers will appreciate this.
Yeah.
They also don't want people just to stray into their courthouse and do various things. I know that lawyers are very concerned about it.
Yeah.
They are very concerned.
Yeah. Yes, you can continue, but what I wanted to address was, but in building on what you mentioned, we see that the Bar Association gets involved in things like going to golf face, and like that was one of their primary, let's say, goals, and we saw that, you know, a lot of activity there. Is it that conventionally the boundaries or the role of the Bar Association hasn't been defined? Is it up to whoever is elected to establish the pathway they are going to go, or is there some understanding, some common understanding of, you know, this is the role of the Bar Association, this is where we need to head, this is who we need to protect, these are the kind of quality control mechanisms that we can establish? So is it available for someone to see?
No, it is not available.
Right.
That's quality control.
Yeah.
Now you use the word quality control from a layperson. I will say professional competence control. Now professional competence control. Now if you misbehave,
yeah,
you must get down points.
Yeah.
you must get down. Yeah, you must get downgraded. There are so many complaints against lawyers.
Yeah.
So now you go to this kind of place for publicity.
True.
You go to this kind of place for publicity, and you wear a black coat and go. You see, black coat is a coat that you wear. That is your official attire. That is not there for you to go to golf face. Right. No, I also got a little sick when I saw that you wear black coats, and golf face protest of Aragalis is all right.
Yeah.
You know, they have every right to do that.
Yeah.
But as a professional, you are officer of the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
You see, if you obstruct a lawyer who is coming to court, that is contempt of court. You see, there is contempt of court. You are officer of the Supreme Court of Sri Lanka. That is how we are enrolled.
Yeah.
And after enrollment, we give that lecture. Now, I was doing that for 10 years. I used to give that lecture in Sinhala and English.
Yeah.
You are an officer of this court.
Right.
Please bear in mind that hereafter you are an officer of this court. You can't, as a lawyer, go somewhere else. You can, without the black coat, you can wear a sarong and banyan and go and do anything.
Yeah.
We have no problem about that. Yeah. But when you wear this, that is a recognized, now people recognize
That attire.
that attire. You are right.
They associate that with the Supreme Court.
Not with Magistrates Court, with the Supreme Court.
Supreme Court.
So we give that. That is why the oath ceremony takes so long.
Yeah.
One by one, they are enrolled.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's so painful. We have to sit 3 sessions. One by one we have to enroll, and then we call him by name, and of course the address is made for each batch collectively, but each one is addressed by name.
By name. Right.
So we take so much of trouble on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Bar Association must pick it up.
Yeah.
And I am happy that you are doing this program at this time, because the new president of the Bar Association should formulate this.
True.
And that should be some factor that will be taken into account by the membership.
Yeah.
This man has a program of action.
Right, right, that's true. Sir, I want to talk a bit about the reforms aspect, and we'll go into a bit of details, because you are in a very good position to give us an explanation as to where we can head from this point onwards. But we'll take a very short break. You're watching Law, Land and Liberty. Stay with us. Welcome back to Law, Land and Liberty. We are in conversation with former Chief Justice Sarath and Silva. Sir, once again, a lot of interesting things that you explained to all of us. I think something that the Bar Association can bear in mind as they move forward. Now, on a more legislative point of view, if we can just get your takes on where the reformation that you would want to see on texts where you believe that we need to have some key changes happening, either towards the legal fraternity to have some change, or even for the country to have some form of directional change, because we need to be critical of these institutions. I believe even the Queen had once mentioned that if you are in public office or if you are in a public institution, you should be open to criticism, and that is the entire importance of the crux of this discussion. What are the key reforms that you think that needs to take place right now, sir?
A very important matter aspect. I'm happy, Dhanin, that you are touching upon this. It is vital to do that, because for a long time we have been talking about constitutional reform. Yes. I have been personally engaged in this for a very long time. Yeah. And that's one place where I failed. The legal system, courts, I have done my maximum, and there is nothing more that can be done. But here is some place where we have failed. Yeah. Now, we had very briefly, Dhanindu, now this constitutional law is a first year subject in the law college and the law faculty. They study a very small segment of it. Yeah. The theory part of it is in another section, that is political science. Right. Now, I happen to do political science as well. Right. So, I had a mix of this. That is in political science. So, there is no meeting of the two. Now, we had a system of governance that was introduced, constitution making. We must pay respect to Britain. Yes. They really developed us as a model colony. Okay. However much nationalistic you are. Recently someone written in the papers, why didn't we remain as a colony of Britain? Yeah, I saw that, I thought that man is not far wrong. No, but Britain wanted us to gain independence. Right. Really, DSN didn't push for independence. Britain forced it on us. They developed from our Supreme Court was established by the Charter of Justice in 1802. H.W. Jayawardena used to mention this always, Charter of Justice 1802. Yeah. We completed 200 years of the Supreme Court when I was Chief Justice. Yeah. And someone said we should felicitate. I said no felicitation. If at the end of my term of 10 years, people say I had done a good job, that's enough felicitation for me. So they developed from the rudiments of constitution making, from the Colebrook-Cameron reforms, McCallum reforms, and Donamo reforms. Yeah. We came to Donamo reforms in 1931. We were the first country in Asia to have universal adult franchise. Right. First country in Asia. India didn't have. Yeah. So the Donamo Constitution established what was called the State Council, and they had an executive committee system of government, elected representatives, no party politics. That was the most successful constitution in Sri Lanka. 1931, during the most troublesome period of the war, it's a State Council and the Donamo Constitution that worked. They introduced free education. C.W.W. Kannangara was the chairman of the Education Committee. No one knows this thing. Yeah. Executive. Then D.S. Senanayak was, he established all the central colleges and free education. Yeah. Many of these people are now being educated because of C.W.W. Kannangara's vision. Yeah. Then D.S. Senanayak was the chairman of the Agriculture Committee. He established Galloya, this whole area. Now, of course, Gotabaya Rajapaksa destroyed part of the agriculture, but still the infrastructure is there. Yeah. He built Galloya, the Polonnaruwa, got the people back onto the field. Yeah. He was the chairman of the... Bandaranayake was the chairman of the health. Free health service. All these health services were done. All were done during that period under this what we call the executive committee system. Then we came to the Salisbury Constitution, and they introduced the electorate system, which was there under the Donamo Constitution. That was also with now British form of cabinet government. Executive committee system was with the cabinet. That also functioned very well. Yeah. That was also functioning very well. Really, when Mr. Jayawardena was elected as Prime Minister, there was no problem. No one wanted him to introduce this blessed presidential system. No one. And he also didn't say in his election manifesto, I am going to be the executive president. He didn't say that. He said, I am going to give you 8 pounds of grain. so someone jibed that instead of 8 pounds of grain, he gave us an executive presidency. So he did this to elevate him to a higher level. He was the minister of the executive committee chairman of finance committee. It is after that he made this famous San Francisco address where the Japanese are still beholden to us. So then he was minister of finance. Very successful. If Mr. J.R. Jayawardena continued as prime minister, he would have been the most admired prime minister. He would have been the most. But he went on to this path, which was totally alien to the British system. That was the system on which the American system started with presidency. George Washington was the person who fought the war and gained independence. So they had a tradition of that. Charles de Gaulle was similar. Now, but President J.R. Jayawardena can't become Charles de Gaulle. He didn't win a war.
The contexts are different.
Contexts are different. So now executive system is presidency is a total failure. If you ask any person on the street, he will say it is a failure. In 1994, I'm quite vocal about it. In 1994, when Mrs. Chandrika Kumaratunga contested the presidency, he said, I will abolish this within 6 months. 6 months. And he called it the Bahubhuta Constitution. 6 months. Then I was in the Supreme Court. Then I was persuaded to come back. I had served 20 years in the Attorney General's Department. Persuaded to come back to do this constitutional reform. And first reform thing that I drafted myself was for Chandrika to get back to Parliament because she was Prime Minister. It was fairly easy. But somehow
it didn't work.
It didn't work. That's why I said it was a failure. I drafted it. A very easy amendment. She was Prime Minister. You change this and put her back there. No, but somehow she didn't want. Now, by that time, she has got ensconced in the President's office. Now everybody is coming around to him. She didn't have to go to Parliament to answer questions. She didn't have to stick to time schedules. She can work on her own time. Everybody has to be hanging around in her office waiting to speak to her, including the Attorney General and so on. So that 6 months just fizzled off. And that was lost. Then thereafter also the Rajapaksas, and the Rajapaksas also came with this same noble idea. But they strengthened. Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who want to abolish, strengthen the presidential system. His 20th Amendment also strengthening of the presidential system. But this system can't work in this country. Because, I'll give you one reason. A president is elected by the whole country. He makes various promises. He must have authority to carry through these promises. He has to have authority to carry through these promises. Now he has to have a compliant parliament. So he starts getting people to cross over this side. Every day, still it is happening. This is not past history. I offer you so many ministries and you cross over. Now that's what happens. Now that is where we have gone. So we have one big problem to get out of this executive presidency. The second problem is even worse. We changed our electoral system. We had first past the post seats, and every member of Parliament was identified by his electorate. By his electorate. That is the system that prevails in England, India, Bangladesh, everybody. Mr. J.R. Jayawardena want to have weak Parliament. So he created this district. Now, if you district is electorate, the Colombo district starts from the Kennedy Bridge and goes up to the Kalutara Bridge. On this side to Abissawella. From this side to Kaduwela. No person can ever canvass in that district. So you get the same persons. First election under this Manapa system, which is a system which is not practiced anywhere in the world. Outrageous system. where you get a huge ballot paper, and at the end of it, like a little few set of squares with numbers you are supposed to cut. I have seen people, old people with numbers written on their palm. They are looking at this.
Look at the palm and,
and marking. So this, nowhere in the world do they have this.
Yeah.
So this system, so because of that, only few people can do this. A newcomer. Now supposing you want to take politics, don't do that. But you elect Colombo district, how can you win? You can't even.
It's a huge area.
Is it? So, but there are veterans who can pick 5,000 votes here, 10,000 votes there, 2,000 votes here, and he's through. So from February 1989 was the first thing under this Manapa system. There are MPs who are still continuing.
Yeah.
So it is very difficult to change. So that is one thing. We had to get back to this electoral system, but to prevent avalanche of majority of persons seats being that was a problem in 1970 and 77. We had the opposition got whitewashed.
Yeah.
You have certain proportion
Yeah.
on this proportionate system.
Yeah.
So that these two reforms, now the president should be someone who is elected by parliament, and we can have a president who can represent the plurality of this country, the plural composition of this country. A Tamil person can be the president for 3 years. A Muslim person can be the president for 3 years, only for 3 years.
Yeah.
No pensions,
Yeah.
no houses. Then a Catholic can be. Yes. So now, then the plural composition of this countries, but of course he has a different ceremony and role.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the, but we have prime minister, cabinet, and but with this electoral system.
Yeah.
Now I have been working on this for years.
Okay.
Every time I present this, it is. So finally I wrote it out.
Yeah.
It is there. 40 pages I wrote. I thought before I die, I will leave this. This is where everything, how the election, how the public service should be strengthened, how the, now we can have a constitutional council with eminent people, but we don't have criteria.
Yeah.
Now if you want to select people, the selection panel can be the best of people.
Yeah.
But if they don't know what criteria to apply, what can you do?
Yeah.
So somebody must evaluate.
Yeah.
So they must have separate bodies for those things. So all these things have been gone into in this.
Yeah.
And I thought before I die, I will. Then I went and met Mr. Mahinda Rajapaksa, whom I knew. I had known him for a long time, although I opposed him bitterly.
Yeah.
I went and told him, Mahinda, I have done this. Now you are, before this Aragale, before the Aragale, then why I have prepared this. Can't you do this, present this in parliament and get out of it? Your name will be preserved.
Yeah.
He said, Sarath, I don't know this. You will make me look a very ignorant man. You have done with your wisdom. I can't present, I can't take your thing. So I said, I can't come by your side. You have to take the responsibility.
Yeah.
I will come and support it. Then I said, to whom can I give it? Then I just said, shall I give it to Ranil Wickremesinghe? Now Ranil Wickremesinghe was not a member of parliament
At that time.
at that time. I went and met him. He said, give it to him. That man can do it. I went and met him and I gave him this. He looked at it. He said, yes, I will put this in. Then I think he kept it in his library. Library also got burnt.
Right.
But anyhow, it's there. Then I gave it to Mr. Dinesh Gunawardena.
Right.
His copy also got burnt, but he got another copy.
Right.
So it is done and ready. Now somebody must, this must go before Select Committee of Parliament. Now they have established a National Council.
Yeah.
I sound in nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like that, we have to get, now we have 2 years more to a presidential election then do. Otherwise we will amble along till the presidential election. Then that is what happens in Sri Lanka. You amble along, then you have to have a presidential election.
Yeah.
If you get started on this, then by that time we have the electoral system, parliament election will be held on the new system.
Yeah.
Then we have got this thing through.
Yeah.
So I am very happy that you gave me this opportunity. I was keeping this and I think this is a call, public call that I make to Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe. Sir, I gave this to your hand and you promised to do this.
To bring it to Parliament.
To bring it to Parliament, select committee.
Yeah.
Then of course the Aragalayer people, everybody can come and chip into this. Then in this legislative reform, what I found is you can't have concepts.
Yeah.
You must have something in black and white.
Yeah.
Then they can say you take this out, put this in, like that.
True. So there's a lot more to talk with you, but unfortunately we have run out of time on today's program. Hopefully we can continue this discussion and we'll see this in Parliament and in the public forum in the near future, so that there will be some tangible change that we see towards the years to come. Former Chief Justice Sarath and Silva, thank you so much, sir, for joining us today.
Thank you, Derana.
All right. It is quite clear that the legal profession has a key role to play in today's society. One of Sri Lanka's most iconic legal minds, who served as judge of the International Court of Justice from 1991 to 2000, Justice C.J. Veeramantri, put together a very important idea closer to the end of his book, Towards One World, the Memoirs of Judge Veeramantri. He said, "This work is a plea to lawyers individually and to legal professions as repositories of their exalted vocation to shed this attitude of insularity and to see the law as the most far-ranging instrument of service available to society for the advancement of happiness and justice." That is all from us here at Law, Land and Liberty. If you had missed today's program, you can rewatch the entire episode on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/otherthanenglish. I'm Danitha Nawasa. Have a great time.